Today we got a question from Carl, who's in the Canadian military, and he's been training jiu-jitsu for a number of years on and off. And he says that in jiu-jitsu, because of the nature of his work, he trains with this sort of in the back of his mind that this could be used in a life-threatening situation. And so in the gym, he says he's not one of the people that will shy away from using the more, quote, greedy or greasy or dirty techniques, meaning, adding a little bit of pain into the mix. Now, he says he does this, but he's never hurt anybody or anything like that, and he wants to make sure that he does not become one of the guys that nobody wants to roll with because they're seen as an asshole that's being dirty. And so he sends me a question just about my thoughts on the subject about using greasy or dirty techniques, as he calls them, and possibly sort of getting into this idea of being able to train more. He said in his message, violently in the gym. So, brother, let's talk about it. So, thank you for the question, by the way, Carl. And we'll break this down into two sections. We'll talk about the greasy, dirty techniques, painful stuff, and then we'll talk about this idea of, doing regular sport training in the gym and why you can still use it. It can be effective for you, okay? So first off, with the greasy, dirty techniques, a lot of people misinterpret what I say on the channel sometimes because I'll say, don't be a dick in the gym. That doesn't mean that you don't do painful stuff. It's perfectly fine to do painful stuff. I just want to make sure that it has a very specific technical end, right? Like I'm using this forearm in the throat to get the person to create space so I can fight for underhooks. I'm not just going to drive my forearm into their neck just because I don't know what else to do. Or sometimes I'll put a lot of shoulder pressure and squeeze and even put my chin right into someone's cheek as I'm basically clamping their body down to get them to bring their arm up to defend, because maybe they're down really tight, to get that arm up to defend, and as soon as the arm comes up, I snatch it. And I use it for those sorts of things. And I think that if you use your painful stuff, as long as it's used for a technical means, I think it'll be fine. And obviously you've been training for a number of years, so nobody said anything to you, so I think as long as no one's saying something to you, you're probably fine. Again, we're not playing patty cake at the end of the day. We're in a combat sport. So again, my big sort of line on this is, if it potentially injures the person where they can't train tomorrow, it's not something I'm going to use in the gym. If it's just a little discomfort that then gets them to move in a certain way that helps me out, I'll use it. That's kind of my line that I draw. And I think it's a fairly decent one. Now, let's talk about the more important, I think, question of it, where you're talking about using this in a life-threatening situation. So a lot of people, will look from the outside in at jiu-jitsu, and they'll criticize it for not being realistic, because we do a lot of weird stuff when we roll around. And of course, it's not realistic for a fight situation. It's realistic for what we're doing, where we're trying to beat our training partners or compete in a tournament or something. But yeah, it's not realistic to a fight, but we're not fighting all the time either. And if we were only devoted to 100% realism, we would get rid of the mats, we would just lay a big concrete slab down here, and we would all fight in street clothes. And as soon as you come in for your very first day, you would just get beat up, hurt, and nobody would get better at it. So we don't train that way. It's not a smart way to train. We have to make things a little bit safer, right? But that said, you can still get a lot of effectiveness from this. And anybody that's actually been in a lot of situations knows it. I think that sometimes people who have never actually been in fights before, try to give their 2 cents. It's like the overweight guy giving you dieting advice of how to lose weight. It's like you're getting people, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who've never been in fights before, criticizing some of the different martial arts for not being effective in the streets. we're not going there, right? So anyway, I'm getting way off track today. But with that, there's a cool quote from a guy named Chris Howder. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, pretty well known. And his idea is to train sport, think street. So you train your sports stuff, but then you always know about, well, how would this apply in a fight situation, right? If you're holding someone down, how could you deliver a strike, or how could you get out of the situation completely? If someone's on top of you, how could you, get them off of you so you could escape? You can think about these different things. This is one of the reasons why my jiu-jitsu relatively is very simple. I never really got too enamored with really complicated techniques because in my mind, I'm like, I can't use those in a fight situation. I have a few that are a little tricky, but for the most part, my jiu-jitsu is very simple because I always want to be able to use my jiu-jitsu from gi to no gi to fights to rolling. I want it to be very versatile in that way. And because I fought MMA for a long time and still train with some of the MMA fighters from time to time, I don't really want to do any of the fancy flippy upside down stuff. It's just not my thing. Nothing wrong with it if you want to, just not my thing. And so I would kind of consider that maybe in the same sort of boat where you probably want to make sure that your jiu-jitsu is very versatile and transferable to any of the different realms of jiu-jitsu. You can take it into competition. You can take it into just rolling in the gym. You can take it into a street fight. You can take it into a fight situation where you have to defend yourself, wherever. And maybe some good news for you is that I don't have a lot of military guys that have told me. I have guys that are combat veterans, but none of them use their jiu-jitsu in those situations. But I do have a lot of police officers that have had to use their jiu-jitsu in situations that were life-threatening. And the good news is that they've been able to defend themselves effectively and been able to do so while keeping the person that they're fighting safe as well, which is kind of a good thing for them. So they're able to save 2 people in the same situation with effective grappling. And so you can take that for what you will. So I think with this, brother, kind of getting back around to it, you're probably not doing anything wrong. Nobody's saying anything. But just with your jiu-jitsu as you're getting into it, take Chris Howder's advice. I think it's really good. Train your sport. Just train jiu-jitsu. Just enjoy it. Have fun with it. And then just make sure that you kind of think about how that would apply in a fight situation and what you maybe should be mindful of. And you can even ask your coach, but what you maybe should be mindful of. Like, are you closing distance? Can the person bite you? I mean, because that's like something like I won't do an arm bar in a street fight. One of my coaches did that. And he got a big chomp on his leg and he got infected. And I'm going to focus more on control. And really, I mean, to wrap this video up, that's one of the best things you'll get for jiu-jitsu. Should you ever be in a situation where you have to defend yourself, not inside the gym, is the control. The position before submission. If you can control someone, it doesn't take a rocket doctor to deliver a strike or to hold someone down or whatever it might be. It really doesn't. It doesn't take as much. If you're really good at jiu-jitsu, adding those little elements on is not too difficult. So just an idea to chew on, brother, and I'll talk to you guys next time.